Welcome to another edition of the DX Engineering video series, and today, visiting DX Engineering here in Talmadge, Ohio, we're very pleased to have Joe Rudi, NK7U, with us. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks, Tim. Good to be here, always.
Yes, nice to see you, and welcome back to Ohio. I guess it's been a while since...
Probably since I played here, probably. The last time I can remember, maybe when I was coaching, more than likely, but last time I was in Cleveland.
Wow. So when did you get started in amateur radio?
I played a lot with, I never really, I would say actually ham radio when I was a kid. I had an older neighbor, about 3 or 4 years older than I was, a boy, and we lived in the country, and we started playing with crystal radio sets, and then my grandmother had one of those big old round-topped radios, and he used to come over at night, and pretty sure my grandfather had put a wire up in a tree because we lived pretty far out in the boonies. So we could hear stations at night that we couldn't hear. I mean, we'd hear LA and once in a while Salt Lake City, that kind of stuff. So we got pretty excited DXing and that stuff. And that was really my first introduction to it. And then I didn't really get exposed to it again until the early 70s. We moved out to Danville, California. We were living closer to Oakland when I was playing with the A's at the time. We'd moved out there, bought a home up on the side of the hill next to San Damiano Retreat, which was a Franciscan Brothers retreat house, a very big place. And two of the priests, a brother, and the maintenance man were all hams. And I remember the first time I went over there to meet them, and they were huge baseball fans. And I remember the maintenance man lived down below, and he had a tower and an antenna. So I started going over there, listening to the radio all the time. And one thing led to another. They actually gave me my first test for a novice test.
So what year would that have been?
Ah, boy, it had to be late 74, early 75, okay. Somewhere in there. I think before spring training is 75 probably, my mind remembers. And so I just got started in it that way, and you know, one thing led to another, and started carrying it on the road with me, and I really enjoyed it. So, I mean,
you just talked about spring training, and you talked about carrying it on the road, and you mentioned the Oakland A's. Why don't you give our viewers just a quick synopsis of your Major League Baseball career?
Well, I signed with the Kansas City A's. People remember that far back in 1964. Played a little bit there as a first-year player in '65, and then actually made the starting lineup in '67 in Kansas City. '68 we moved to Oakland, and so going through those years, I never really had any kind of time to get into ham radio stuff at that time. And then finally got settled in the big leagues. We got in the World Series years, 72, 73, and 74, and things started settling down. We had 2 kids by then, and so I started having a little more free time in the winter, and that's when I had met these brothers over there, and they were big baseball fans, and like I said, one thing led to another. Next thing I knew, I have a ham license, and so then as I got more and more into it, then I got my general license and started carrying equipment on the road with me. I remember my first radio that I took with me was an Atlas 210X, which was a great little radio. It had a small power supply. And in the early days, the hotel windows would open, so we could put a fishing pole out and drop a line down, and I had a little tuner, and it worked really well. I had a lot of fun with it. Later on, I had to go to a Hustler dipole put up against the windows, and it worked okay. Not as good as the wire out the window, but I had a lot of fun. Kept me out of the bars at night.
Well, that's good. And you had quite a career in Major League Baseball, but it sounds like, you know, your exposure to radio, the crystal radio at the early age, that spark, that interest never left you. Never left me.
You know, I was always, even in the car, a lot of times, you know, we drove a tremendous amount, obviously, at night, and I would be driving back in the old days with the AM radio sitting there and tuning around. You could pick up Chicago from Arizona during spring training and that kind of stuff. It was always part of my subconscious or whatever, because I was always seeing what I could hear. Always enjoyed that, and so when I got going with the ham radio stuff, that was really the next big step.
So you were like a DX'er right from the start. You liked to see how far you could hear.
I really was, because that was always exciting. Was telling my wife, "Hey, I heard LA," or "I heard Salt Lake City." Later on, just different things you could hear out of the car radio. So it was a lot of fun, and she was pretty patient. After almost 50 years of marriage to put up with all my towers and antennas and moving and everything else she's put up with.
And so, you know, you go along in this wireless phenomena that had entered your life. Now that you're post your baseball career, and you did some coaching, and
Yep.
and now you've actually built your dream station. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we moved to let's see, 1976 was my last year with the A's after 12 years, and I went down to play with the Anaheim Angels. Well, that was the beginning of free agency. I'd signed a fairly nice contract, and we ended up buying a ranch in Northeast Oregon because we had the 2 kids, and by then we had 2 more kids. So we had 3 boys and a girl, and we really didn't want to. I grew up in a very small rural area on a dairy, and did not like bringing my kids up in the big city. So we bought this ranch in the middle of nowhere. My wife wondered where the heck I took her, because I'd gone up there and started hunting with Harmon Killebrew.
Wow.
Harmon Killebrew was from that area, and so we had started hunting chuckers down in the Snake River, fell in love with the area. So we went up there and bought this big ranch, and now I had plenty of room to put towers up. Nobody bothered me there. And so we put up our first couple of towers, spent hours on the phone with Bob Ferrero from HRO back in the day, trying to figure out what can I, because I couldn't climb towers. It was in my contract. I couldn't do anything dangerous, so I had to find a crank-up tower type thing, and so I bought a couple of guide crank-up towers and monobanders, and that was my first real exposure to getting on with some decent antennas, and that's when the bug really bit. And it's been downhill ever since. Cause
uphill.
Okay, it's because towers keep multiplying.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we ended up with 10 towers there before I left.
Wow. So, and today in Baker City, Oregon, which is the
there.
QTH of NK7U,
Yep.
what sort of a layout of equipment do you have there?
Well, we have, trying to appease the XYL there a little bit, we sort of downsized. So I got 3 150-foot towers and 1 70-foot crank up. Got an 80-meter 4-square, wire 4-square on 160, and pretty much 3 high monobanders on 10, 15, and 20 on Europe and JA, and some rotatable antennas. I always tried to have fixed antennas if I could up there, because the winters are so cold. Mm-hmm. You just can't do anything in the wintertime. It's too cold, the ice is too much, and so I always try to put fixed arrays both on Japan and Europe, because that's your main run areas. And so it's worked out pretty good. We've had a great time up there.
Do you ever have any time to get on the air and just rag chew with guys?
You know, I do from time to time. It really is, in the last 3 or 4 years, Danny, NK7U Sugar, is a good friend of mine, and I remember calling him up about 3 or 4 years ago, and I said, Danny, you ever get on the air when the contests aren't on? And he goes, no, not very much. I said, well, let's start getting on. I said, get a hold of contesters up there. I'll get a hold of guys down here in Oregon and some of the California I know. And so we started getting on about 9 or 10 o'clock almost every night, probably 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. It depends on the time of the year, especially in wintertime. It's too cold to go outside, then we're on more. But we started getting a group of West Coast contesters on, and just sort of rag chewing, talking, especially after contests, you know, comparing notes and sort of seeing what everybody did. And I think it just sort of keeps the interest going a little heavier.
So in these contests and the competitions, you typically invite guys over to operate, right?
Almost always. I do very few, probably 160 meter contests, 10 meter contests. Sometimes I'll do a single op, but I just enjoy having the guys there. You know, growing up in a team sport my whole life, and spent 35 years or so in baseball, professionally, and you know, in high school and that type of stuff. But I enjoy having the guys over, really do. My wife's been so great to allow them. She'd wake up in the morning, have guys sleeping all over the floor everywhere, and you know, different places, and not even know who was there. Some guys show up in the middle of the night, and so it's been great for me. So many guys have such a terrible time adjusting out of baseball when they get out of the game. It is a tough adjustment, but boy, ham radio has just been a godsend for me, because it's really given me an interest. The contesting thing is almost like, you know, going to spring training. You're always getting ready for the next contest, planning what you're going to do, talking to the guys that are coming, getting things set up, and then the competition of the actual contest. And so it's just been a great filler for me to give me something that I'm interested in and passionate about to do after baseball.
So now you're on a cross-country trip. And so you left Baker City, Oregon Monday morning.
Yep.
And
actually Sunday at about 2 o'clock.
Oh.
KL98 N6MJ were there doing field day, testing out all their equipment for the WRTC. And I offered to bring all the radios and equipment. I didn't realize how much extra equipment they had beside the radios. I've got about 400 pounds of their stuff in the back of my van. And so I left about probably 2 o'clock Baker time, and we drove to Wyoming the first night, and then this is our third full day of driving today. And so it's been a lot of fun because we just have never done that before.
Now, when you get up to the Boston area where the World Radio Team Championship 2014, WRTC 2014, will be held next week, you're participating, you're doing some VIP event up there. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah, they called and asked me if I would come back and take a group of the hams who were wanting to sign up for a tour of Fenway Park, which is one of my all-time favorite parks. It's a great ballpark. It was probably one of the funnest places to play ball ever. The fans there were always so knowledgeable of the game, and I just love playing there. I wish I could have had a chance to play a little more there. Some things didn't work out of some trades, and the year I did get to go there, I was coming off of tearing my Achilles, so I never got to play much that year. And then we had the strike on top of it in '81, so it was sort of a lost year. But I love Boston, so we're really looking forward to taking I'm not sure how many we're going to have of the hams and families, whoever wants to come, and we're going to do a tour, get to go up on top of the Monster. I haven't been there to see that since they put the seats on top of the Monster in left field, and go through their Hall of Fame and just see the whole ballpark.
Do you have a memorable at-bat when you were at Fenway Park?
Boy, actually my career, Fenway was my best park. I had my highest batting average of anywhere else playing there because I loved the center field. It was so many guys tried to pull the ball up on the wall. I just tried to hit the center field. It was only 380 feet to center field. And so it was tough early part of the year because the wind blows in early part of the year, but later in the year when you go there, that wind blowing out, all you gotta do is hit a fly ball to center field, it's a home run. So no, we had some great battles with those guys, and they actually ended our run. We won 72, 73, and 74, won the World Series, and 75 they beat us in the playoffs, and that was the year that Carlton Fisk had the home run when he's doing all the waving to keep it fair and all that stuff, and which was a memorable World Series also. But no, I'm really looking forward to go back and seeing it because they totally redid the whole stadium. They had to upgrade a lot there, so I haven't seen it since they've done it.
So you've had a pretty good life so far, between amateur radio and Major League Baseball, and great kids and a wonderful wife, Sharon. I mean, when you look at 67 years of Joe Rudi, it's pretty good.
Hard to believe 67. Gosh, that used to sound really old, but it doesn't seem so old anymore. No, I've been very blessed. I mean, I signed right out of high school, and Sharon and I got married at 19 and 18. I think, let's see, yeah, she spent her 21st birthday in the hospital having our first son. And like I said, we waited about 7 years between the two sets, but we ended up with 3 boys and a girl. Every daddy needs a little girl at times, I think, because my daughter calls me almost every day, thank goodness. And no, it's been a great life. We've enjoyed it, and like I said, my wife has been so great to pull up roots, move to Oregon, and as much as we bounced around and traveled and put up with me running all over the place, not only for ham radio, but doing all the other stuff that, I still do a lot of baseball functions and charity events and that kind of stuff. So she's very tolerant, been very blessed.
Well, we're thrilled that you're part of the amateur radio fraternity. And
great fraternity.
And we're certainly looking forward to more and more big signals and big scores out of NK7U in Oregon. And we'd like to thank everybody today for watching another edition of DX Engineering Videos.